I just want to do a quick introduction to this episode. It is with a special lady from our church. Her name's Isabel. And this is a long interview, and I only made one part because there really wasn't a good place to stop her interview and her story. So I'm not going to put any ads in here. I'm not going to do any of my affiliates. They're all in the links below in the show notes. And so if you want to go and check out my affiliates, go ahead. But I just want to get right into this interview, and I hope that you're blessed, and I hope that her story encourages you, as her story is about breaking a lot of family trauma. And I apologize off the bat for the bad sound quality. We're trying to work out the interviews and get them down, and there are a lot of cuts because we just could not stop talking. We were just talking, and so the interview went really well, and there are a lot of cuts. So again, I really hope that you enjoy the interview with Isabel. Thank you. Hi, welcome to One Tough Mama podcast. This is Christine Siddons. I'm so glad that you're here. Today, I have a special guest with me, Isabel, and I just want to let her tell her testimony. And I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. When you announced that you were starting the podcast, it was like an encouragement. Aww. Just to see like that you're doing something with, because I believe that you're a prayer warrior, and I believe, that you heard from God. And so really encouraging, but also like, I was like, oh, that'd be really cool to be able to go on. And so I'm really glad that you took me up on that offer and invited me here, because I am really thankful. But yes, so my name's Isabel. I'm 26 years old. I have 5 kids. My last set is twin girls. So.
Yes. All right, cool. So I don't know, for those of you that don't know, like I used to work at the high school with the special ed department, and we would go in with our class to the cafeteria before the general population would come. And so we would sit kind of where the fast food, what was the other? There was like 2 lines. Anyway, there was like a fast food line and another line right next to each other. We would kind of sit right there. And I just remember you and your husband, and you were married at the time.
Yes.
And I don't know why, because I saw tons of kids,
right,
tons of students. But I remember you were like leaning up against the like the pole where they had the line, and then he was just kind of like hanging on it, like kind of not grumpily, but he was just like, oh, I don't want to be here, kind of, And for some reason, you guys stood out, and it wasn't like you guys came at the same time in the same line every day.
Yeah, because we hardly actually went into that cafeteria.
Yeah, and something about you guys just stood out.
Yeah.
And there's like a couple of kids that I'll remember if I see them around town. And so when you guys came to church, I was like, wait a minute, where do I know them from? And it took me a minute that's the couple.
That's so funny.
So yeah, so I'm so excited because I didn't talk to you guys or anything,
right? Yeah.
When we were both at school, but it's just very exciting how God moves. So yeah, just go ahead. You can start your testimony, and then I will just go from there.
I wanted to start kind of like not too far back, not from in the womb, but more so like. One of the questions you had mentioned was like being, or like how I had heard about God.
Yes.
And so one of my earliest memories with my dad was, I remember one time like he opened up the Bible and he wanted us to read Genesis. So I was at an age where I could read, because I do remember reading some of it, and he like would talk to us about it. But that was very short-lived, like maybe 1 or 2 nights that we did that. But that was like, and he was somewhat religious to where he like explained to me certain things like God's name. And I didn't know about Jesus or the death of Jesus or why he died or the cross. Or I really had no understanding of that as a young child, but I do remember my dad trying to share certain things about God to me.
Yeah.
And then even like my mom would take us to church, like maybe I could probably count the times that she took us to church on my hand, so it wasn't like we were always in church or nothing. Like, it really was no kind of spirituality,
Right.
no kind of religion in our home. But yeah, and so that was kind of like the gist of what I knew about God before going to church as an adult. And then my childhood, I had somewhat of a decent childhood. I mean, I had my mom, her mom, they both took care of me. My dad, he was very much in and out of the house, dealing with drug abuse, alcohol, even getting in trouble with the law. So he was very much in and out of the picture. And a lot of my memories with him are honestly not the best memories either. Right. And so that was kind of like how my childhood was. We got to play outside, and I played with my siblings. I have 2 siblings, and then I got to play with our childhood friends, or like the neighborhood friends. Right. So that was really cool. Like, I love that about like my childhood was we were outside a lot. And then even though we had like the TVs and stuff started being introduced, which I feel like, well, I was born late 90s. So I think they were kind of already, the TVs were for sure already around. But because that is part of my testimony that is just lack of better words, like kind of depressing. Yeah. Just like the whole technology and television, because we had TVs in every room at one point. You know, we had almost like free reign too. Like, there was no kind of protection as far as like what we watched. But
but back then too, like, there wasn't probably as much stuff on. Yeah. You know? I mean, because TV for me as a kid was totally different than TV today for kids. Yeah. You know? And
one thing though I do remember about, at a very young age, I had fallen asleep watching TV, and I woke up at like 3 a.m. and stuff that a kid should not be seeing. You know, like explicit stuff. And I feel like that really did put seeds into my life of things of that nature.
They even had that when I was a teenager. Yeah. So I kind of have the same like experience. Yeah. And so when I was down living with my dad for the summer, late night when kids should be sleeping. Yeah. And it was like very grainy and very, you know, I mean, back in the day. Yeah. But it's still the same.
Yeah. So imagine like this was probably like early 2000s. This is very colored now. Yeah. This is colored very like in your face. And it's very, and I think that definitely led to a lot of like different sin growing up, because that's, so from my childhood, I feel like I had a pretty decent one. I mean, there was definitely trauma going on in our home. Mm-hmm. Our home was not perfect. Yeah. But that's one thing that I know my mom and my grandma, I know they did the best that they could with what they had and with their trauma that they grew up with. Yes. So I understand that they did the best they could, and I don't hold them accountable for that, you know? Right. And so, but that was definitely, because I think it's just generational, you know, just the way that, because some of the ways that I can act, I could see I could see my mom doing it in my memories. Yeah. You know, and so I know a lot of that's generational, but
it's kind of strange, huh? Yeah, and it's interesting, like, there's things that I'd never heard about your testimony, because we grew up with, in my grandparents' home too. And so when my parents got divorced, we moved in with my grandparents. And so my grandparents kind of helped raise us too.
Yeah. And like, because my mom, because my dad was very much in and out of the picture, sometimes she would work like 2-3 jobs just to provide for us. She has 3 kids, so, and then it was her, the 3 kids, and then her mom. They're all living in my mom's house. And, so I do, like, a lot of my memories, I do remember my grandma, like, taking us to school and doing our hair and things like that. So I definitely do feel like I was close with my my grandma. Yeah. Because part of my testimony, like when she finally like got her own place, I remember like I feel like my life spiraled. Yeah. That was like when a lot of my life just went like downhill.
How old
fast. You know, this is the funny thing about a lot of my memories. And I mentioned it to some people, and I've heard other things, but for a lot of my memories, I don't know my age.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, and I've heard different things, like trauma. Yeah. But I've also heard, like, one time I mentioned it to a lady, and she was like, well, did she live in the same house all your life? And I said, yes, because I have. Like, I've lived in the same house. I've only been to 3 schools, elementary, middle, and high school, you know, and, like, for other people, it's different. That's not the case. They're in and out of so many schools, you know, but she mentioned that maybe that's why, you know, because she was saying that when they moved to a certain house, then that's when she remembers now these memories. Right. You know? And so I lived in the same house. So it's very hard for me to understand in my memories when they occurred, but I do believe I was around middle school.
Okay. And middle school's already such a formative age. And it's a little bit earlier now, though. The kids are growing up so fast now.
Yes.
But your hormones are going crazy. Your body looks awkward. You feel awkward. So it's already like a hard time. Yeah. And to go through something that's like such a traumatic switch.
Yeah. Yeah. Because even like shortly after she moved out, like not only did I feel like my life spiraled, but also like at home, like with my dad very much in and out. At one point when he was living with us, like there was a very traumatic thing. Like him and his brother just were abusing alcohol, and they just got super like out of control. Yeah. To the point where like it's not funny now. I mean, it wasn't funny then, and it's not really funny now, but I think some part of me like will cope with some of the things with humor, but honestly, it was like a wrestling match in there. Like everyone was putting their hands on everybody. Yeah. Like it was just very, very like, you know, and at the time, like you might not really understand, but I feel like those things have lasting impact on like the way you carry yourself later on. Right. You know, because for me and my siblings, like anytime we had a disagreement, it was like we're hands on. Yeah. You know, it's like this is how we figure things out. And so that definitely just transcribed to like my future.
That's interesting because we weren't necessarily raised like, I mean, we got spanked, everybody got spanked back then, but you know, we weren't like wrestling matches and things like that. But my brother and my sister and I, we had a lot of physical altercations because my mom worked as a single mom, and then so when we were with my dad, it was single dad. When my mom was single mom, and so I had to be the caretaker a lot. Mm-hmm. And so my brother and my sister were like very rebellious.
Are you the oldest?
I'm the oldest. And so so I remember my brother and I got into a lot of like physical fights. Yeah. But we weren't like, I was never physically abused like that. Yeah. So I just think we just had so much pent up anger. Yeah. You know, and then that's just how we were hurtful with our words too. Yeah. You know?
Yes. Yeah, that was one thing I saw, like, my mom and dad a lot be very hurtful with their words against each other. And then doors slamming. Yeah. And, like, it's kind of funny. Like, they actually never really saw them physically, like I never physically saw my dad beat my mom. Yeah. Nothing, like, which is, I guess, strange because that's part of my testimony of like it was very physical violence in our house, and I think a lot of it stems from that one instance where like my dad and his brother were just drinking out of control, and like my mom came home super late one night and they just started like ganging up on her, like, and then my brother got involved, and like to the point where like cops were called, and we had like probably like 6-7 cops at our house, like vehicles,
and this is middle school age.
Yeah. This was like this had been shortly after my grandma left because she wasn't there. Like we went to her house after the incident. Yeah. And then I feel like after that, every kind of disagreement ended in an altercation with my siblings.
So it's almost like with your grandma there, it was almost like a covering.
Yes, and you know, when I was like going through my testimony, I was thinking about why is that? Like, and my grandma, she's, I would best describe her as religious. Like, she knows of the Bible. So it wasn't like she's like praying. It wasn't like she was like you said, like there wasn't a spiritual covering, but it was almost like a covering, and like she wouldn't let that take place.
Well, I think too, like, I don't know, like, I'm an adult, but when my mom's here, you do act a different, like, I act a little different, you know what I'm saying? And so maybe just having the mom figure in the house.
Yeah, because I feel like she definitely like helped rein in my dad a lot of the times. Like she would not let him do certain things. I mean, he was a grown adult, so I'm sure he did things that she didn't like. But yeah, I remember in 6th grade, I believe, after my grandma left, that was like the first time like I actually did school. Yeah, like that was like the beginning of like just the overwhelming spiral. Like, so I think 6th grade I had did school, but I was getting in trouble with different things too, test my limits with certain teachers, which is like so wild to me because I still had good grades. Like I very much at the time I was very much book smart, and so I had like good grades, even though like it was almost like I was just trying to put on this persona of like I'm tough, type of attitude.
Right.
And even like I think by 7th grade, like I was already like smoking weed, and like it was just.
So where were you getting it from? Like other school friends, or?
Honestly, that's one thing that like my mom has always abused.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I mean, not that she was like my supplier or anything, but I think it was just because it was more readily available.
No, no, that's very common. Like a lot of families drink together, smoke together.
Yeah.
Whatever it is they're smoking. Yeah. So it's very common.
And it's at the time, like especially in high school, I remember being like thinking, kind of in a sense, like, oh, my mom's cool. Like she lets us drink at her house. Like she lets us. Do whatever we want. Like, I mean, I remember those times where we would be playing, we would have a whole party at her house, and she was totally like okay with it. And I just remember, and now as an adult, I'm like, what in the world?
Now that you're a mom, you're like, what? I would not do that for my kids.
Yeah. But it's definitely, I think, a generational thing, like, especially with my mom's generation. And speaking to other people who have moms in the same age, it's definitely like I don't know.
Was she more wanting to be your friend, do you think, or do you think she was just trying to deal with her own like struggles and stuff, that it was just because we've all gone through stuff, and sometimes it is just easier, whether just here I'm going through it, you go on an iPad, or here we're all just gonna smoke whatever together. Some things are just easier because to parent. I don't care how many kids you have. Parenting is hard if you're going to actually parent.
Yes, exactly.
And so, do you think it was just like a coping skill, or just you want to be your friend?
I think, in a sense, kind of like a friend. Just because, as I've thought about it, I think I remember her saying like, "Well, you're gonna do it anyways, right? You might as well like at least you're kind of like in my care."
I'm telling you, like, the more you say, the more it mirrors me. Because my dad, I didn't smoke, I didn't drink, my husband was my first, like, all that, And so I was like a goody goody. And my dad is the one, he's like, if you're gonna, like, he was just already assuming I was gonna go to parties, assuming I was gonna do these things. And if I was gonna do these, he wanted them to be done under his roof, under his eyes, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, I really didn't even want to drink, but he, like, gave me my first wine cooler. And I think I was, like, 16, 17. So I wasn't, like, young, but to me, I'm still, like, and I didn't like it. Like I said in my other video, I saw what alcohol did to my family. And so my dad was not the alcoholic, but I saw what it did to my family. But it was kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, if you're going to do it, here you go.
Yeah. And I feel like some of that, too, is, like, we become a product of our environment. Yeah. But I feel like it takes really strong or like almost like smart in a sense, or like maybe even like God's hand upon them to be like, no, I don't want to become that. Yeah. Because there are cases where it's like, the same siblings are like siblings who grew up in the same exact house, and they turn out completely different. Yeah. So it's.
No, I know, because I have a bunch of sets of different siblings.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of family curses and a lot of like blessings, and just even just DNA, different things, like how crazy real that stuff is.
Yeah. Just how I mentioned that a lot of like my testimony, it's like people go through the same things and it's almost like you're not alone and it can help someone else too, you know?
Yeah.
I know by like 8th grade, I'm pretty sure at this point, like I was actually going to stores and like stealing alcohol, like in 8th grade, which is just when I went back, like, and I'm like just trying to think of all my testimony and different things in my life. I'm like, that is insane to me. Like, and I remember too, and the reason why I remember that specifically is because I remember taking it with me on school grounds and drinking it during school. And
Did you like go in the bathroom or
no? Like I had it in my backpack. Yeah. Yes, in 8th grade, which is just blows my mind. Like just things that I was doing at such a young age. Like God was protecting me.
Right?
Still.
Did the teachers not care? Did they?
I don't think they knew. I don't think they knew. Which is just
Yeah.
It blows my mind though that like things that I was doing. You know, because I feel like when we get saved, it's like we just want to put it all behind us. Yeah. You know, because some of it's shameful when you're like, and you just want to kind of forget. And just thinking about my testimony, some of that, like, because I prayed specifically, like, God, like, if there's anything specific you want me to say, like, bring it to remembrance. Because my memory is not, like, ever since our twins. Yeah. Like, I feel like everything's out the window. I don't know why, Ben. Like, I don't know if it's just because now I'm just overly consumed with my kids, like, in the sense of, like, because I have so many. And
you have a lot of little kids,
And so I don't know if that's exactly why, but I did notice a big change in my memory. And so I was praying specifically, like, God, you know, help me, because I can't remember. Like, even, like, how you said, like, the memory of me and my husband at the time in high school, like, obviously, you know, just one day out of however many days in high school, but I don't remember that at all, you know, and I feel like I somewhat remember you, but to say, like, for sure that I remember you from high school, I don't.
I don't even know when you came in, I don't even know, like, if you had looked our way at all, and it wasn't like I was just staring, you know, so you've been like, what, you know?
Yeah,
but I just, for some reason, I just remember you. And then, so were you like going to get the alcohol for yourself? Yeah. So not for your mom or anything?
No,
just for yourself?
For me, it was like me and my sister. She's 1 year older than me, but that's what we, like, I remember the first time we went and did it, and there was such an adrenaline. I'm sure that could have been like the rush. Yeah. But I remember, like, we had one other friend, and we were like, okay, we're gonna go do this, we're gonna go do it. Right. You know, and then our other friend, like, she chickened out, but me and my sister were like, no, let's go. Mm-hmm. So we went in and we did, like, and I mean, that time, my brother and my dad, like, they reprimanded us, you know, they found out, and then we got in trouble. But after that, just realizing how easy it was, it was almost like an addiction. I was like, to be able to consume it, I was like, this is the only way. I was so young, it's not like I had money readily available to just. So, like,
just because I like to find out from other people, because some of my kids have gone through very similar things. And so, like, to help me understand. Yeah. So, was it more of the rush? And I know everybody does it for a different thing. Yeah. Or was it like, did it start affecting your grades and all that stuff?
You know, it's so funny. No, it really didn't. Like, it wasn't until I think my sophomore year was when my grades were really affected. But so that was 8th, and it just continued on into 9th, and just more, it just got worse. But in 9th, I remember having straight A's, and that was too, like, we weren't allowed across the street during lunch. Okay. And I would still go, and I would just smoke, and then come back, and a kid would always make fun of me, like, oh, you stink, you know, because I smell like you. Yeah. Like, I still did my work perfectly fine, and that's, like, one thing, like, my mom stressed was that school's important.
Yeah.
And so
so you're probably too thinking, well, it's not really affecting me.
Yeah, so
I'm still getting straight A's, so I could do this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Because if we hear all this negative stuff, it's gonna hurt your brain, it's gonna hurt all this, you're not gonna do good. So you're probably thinking, I'm okay.
Yeah, I think if you allow it, because like, I don't know, it's a difference for like my husband. Like it did.
So it
affect
affects
him.
people differently.
Yeah, because like he very much believes that it did affect him. You know? But for me, that's not my experience. But yeah, and then like in 10th, it just got now I was able to like go to parties. And well, I don't know if it was just like because I had different friends at the time. I don't know what it was, but I was actually going to parties. And that's like when my grades started being affected, because now like I'd come to school hungover and just things like that, where I did notice a dip in like my favorite subject is math.
Yeah.
And I remember having a low grade in math because I'd miss it, or like I just wouldn't go, or whatever the case is. And I remember I think it was like my report card, or my teacher told me my grade or something. I remember having a C, which is like rare. I had like straight A's, A, B, honor roll probably all through my whole life, you know? And so seeing a C, I was like, oh my gosh, like, and I buckled down and I brought it back up. But it's just so crazy that I was able to like, even through all that, still maintain like a good grades. But
so at that point, were you just still doing like alcohol and marijuana, or were you doing other things?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Yeah, mainly like honestly, I've never really dabbled in much other than just those two. Very little in other things, but that I mean maybe around that time, but it was very rare. Like that was mainly it. I don't know why, and it's so funny because like as I got older, and so I met my husband around 10th grade. Just mutual friends. We started hanging out together, and then it was like to the point where like we always hang out. But like when we were together, prior to us getting saved, I remember that was kind of like when we started like we both started doing more, like different pills and stuff like that. But that was like, I don't know, and I remember too, like at a certain point, he was always the one who wanted to get the drug, like he always wanted the drugs in a sense. And me, I was just like, oh, why do we have to like spend, because I worked a lot for it, and I was like, why do we have to spend my like hard earned money? You know, just because like, and it's not like I wanted a bunch of other things. It's just, I remember though at one point in time I was like, I don't really even want to smoke anymore. Like it's not even like a big, you know, maybe I don't know if I felt that way in high school though, but I know like later on, which I say later on in life, I was still like late teenager.
Right.
But I remember like not really worried about, like not really wanting to anymore.
Right.
I feel like at that time, like I had already lived so much.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because even like, I don't know if it was just because I didn't really have a dad or what. I don't really know what the case was, but even to like early high school, I like wanted attention from boys, and that was like really big for me. Was like, how can I be liked, and how am I perceived, and if I do my hair a certain way, will they look at me, or you know, or like even like wanting to dress in a certain way so that I can have attention, or like have a certain friend group, you know. And so that's a lot of like my identity was, I didn't know who I was.
And I think that's kind of common. Like we trying to figure out who we are. And I think probably 99% of us want to be the popular crowd. Right? Or the whatever cool crowd is. And then if we don't fit into that, so which most of us don't fit into that, so then we have to find where we fit in. And so I think, I mean, that's totally a lot of our experiences, sadly.
So when I met my husband, we were actually friends for quite a while. Before, like I would say like 6 months to a year of just like always hanging out. Like probably like every day.
You can tell you guys were friends because you guys are friends now. You can tell, like I love that. You can tell when a couple are really good friends, and you guys are one of them.
Honestly, that's like one of my I don't know. I feel like it's almost like key for me to. I don't know if I would have made it this far if we weren't friends.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's to see where we're at now, which it wasn't always like that. Like obviously, our relationship in general went through struggles, but where we're at now, I'm like, oh man, like I couldn't imagine not being here,
Yeah.
And so, I feel like, well, when I first saw him, I was like instantly like, he's so cute. But like, I think for a while, like after, like we were friends for a while, then I did start liking him more as a friend, but I was always too shy or like just not able to speak it freely.
Right. Yeah.
And because our other mutual friend was a guy, and so I feel like I don't know. I was like, what would he think? Like, what would that other friend think?
Yeah.
But like just the way we started dating is just funny. Like, he just messaged me one day, and he wasn't even like doing it out of like, I want to be with you. It's just because I had so cringe. I would always post cringe stuff on Facebook. That was real big. That was real big for my generation.
Yeah.
Just posting like everything that you could think of. Like, I'm about to have cereal for breakfast. Such random weird things. Like that was really big for us. But I would always post like I don't know, like I feel like in a way I was depressed with a lot of my life, and so I'd post a lot of like sad things, or like maybe I wanted attention from this guy and he like wouldn't give me, and so I just post like dumb things. And I remember him just reaching out to just be like, like I love you, like you're my friend, and just things like that. And it wasn't really supposed to be like romantic. At the time I took it as romantic. Right. Because I was seeking that. And because I had asked him years later about it, like, well, I just shared what your intentions were. But so it
was just like wanted to give you like, oh, you're feeling sad, I love you, you're my friend.
Like encouragement. But and so I took it as like he liked me, which he did. It wasn't like he didn't, but that wasn't the whole point of the message. But he, like, we were messaging, and then he's like, oh, well, I just kind of want to stay friends, and until we both finish high school. And I remember being so like, I was so against it. I was like, no. I was like, we're either together now or we're not. I'm not waiting. Right. And so for a while, like, we kind of like severed our friendship just for like a couple months. And he was like trying, but I was just like, I don't know. Like, you said what you wanted, and it's obviously not me in a sense. Even though that's not the case, But,
it does kind of make it awkward.
And so, but from there, like, I mean, that was almost 11 years ago.
Wow.
Which is crazy. 11 years ago so I've known him for about probably 12 years, that's a big chunk.
Yeah, it is.
It's so funny. Another year passes. I'm like, this is how long we've known each other.
Right.
But after we got together was actually when a lot of like the craziness in my life slowed down. Like, because we just wanted to be together. Like, we just wanted to hang out. And so we'd still smoke, but like we weren't going to parties. Like we weren't, in the crazy scene. And so it was almost like God knew what he was doing, to slow me down. And then becoming pregnant with our first, that was like really when just the mindset changed of like, we have a kid now.
And how old were you guys?
I was 17. Okay. I was 17.
And you guys the same age?
No, so I was 16 when I got pregnant. I had him at 17. And my husband was, I think, 18.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So he's a year-ish older.
He's actually, it's so funny, the math is actually that he's 3 years. But because our birthdays are so close, it's 2.
Yeah.
So, like, when he turned 18, I was 16.
Yeah.
I have a cousin like that. But then, like, I turned 17 in, like, 2 months after he turns. You know? And so it's funny. I always call him old man. He's so much older than me.
Right.
But yeah, so I was 16 when I got pregnant and had him at 17. And then right after that, we got pregnant again.
Right.
So, and I was still a junior in high school. So I had our first, the summer after my junior year. And then pretty much my whole senior year, I was pregnant.
Right.
Because I got pregnant right after with our second. And even through all that, I was still able to finish high school.
Yeah.
Which is
amazing.
Yeah. I my due date for my second was my day to graduate.
Oh, wow.
To walk the line.
So did you have the baby first or graduate first?
I graduated first. So my due date was my graduation date. And I was like, man, I wonder if I'll be able to make it,
Yeah.
And I didn't. He didn't come till 4 or 5 days after my due date.
But you were pregnant.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was 4 centimeters dilated when I walked the line.
Oh, wow.
Yes. Yeah.
I could have the baby right here, get my diploma, have my baby at the same time.
Which is one thing that's kind of, which I get it, it's, but one thing was I very much kept all of it quiet. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I'm sure they knew, there's no way they didn't. I don't know. I carry my pregnancy a little bit different, where it's not as noticeable for the first several months, but I'm sure at some point they knew.
Yeah.
Just the kids around me in high school, but a lot of it was kept quiet. I don't know if anybody really, really knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. How am I supposed to go back to school?
So what were you guys living together, or were you guys still at your mom's house?
Yeah, so we were kind of living together, and it was actually at his mom's house.
Okay.
Yeah, so we were living there. Which on another note, it just brings back a memory. I remember when me and my husband at the time were first together, we just wanted to be around each other all the time. And I remember my mom, she didn't want that, obviously.
Yeah.
She was you gotta come home. And I'm but I don't want to. I honestly, and I told her word for word, I hate it there. Why would you want me to go back there? And it's the life that I lived growing up there. It's I don't want to be around that. But at one time, my dad was living with my mom, and they wanted me back home. So I came back home, and I was washing laundry all night but at one point my dad came into my room, was upset about, we just want you home. He was just trying to talk to me about why they wanted me home and all this. And I just told him I don't like it here. I hate it here. And I remember him getting so defensive, which looking back now, it was just a trauma response, I feel because he was kind of how do you hate it here? Is it really that bad? And then he started going into his childhood trauma of I
had it much worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to the point where he physically grabbed me, and I remember not being able to breathe, and he let go of me, and he's crying at this.
Yeah.
He's crying, I'm crying, we're all crying. Just traumatic experience. And then I remember being so hurt because afterwards he went back into the room with my mom and my sister were in there, and he's I think he told them what happened, what he did or whatever, and I remember hearing my mom good, she deserves it, in a sense, and just being wow, that's rough, and you want me here at this house,
you're here as just proving my point.
Yeah. And so for a lot of the time, I just wanted to be with my husband.
So at that point, did you have kids at all, or
no? That was that must have been right before, or I might have. Yeah, it must have been right before.
Before you got pregnant.
Yeah. Or I think so.
Yeah.
Or I might have just gotten pregnant or something.
Yeah.
But one thing that really I liked about my husband's home was his family would always sit together at the table for dinner, and they would always sit there. They're not by no means perfect, but it was something I was wow, you guys for us as a family, we sat down together for Thanksgiving. That was it.
Yeah.
That was the only time we sat around the table you know. And so they every single night, like no matter what they were doing, they would stop and they would all go to the dinner table. And it's funny because I was probably at like one of my lowest weights when I first met my husband, and because of his mom's great cooking, I remember like, and then being pregnant too. But I just remember like my clothes were not fitting.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it, and that was like one of my original thoughts of like, I want a big family.
Oh,
Like, I want a big family like my husband's family. Like, I just liked seeing them together. You know,
again, another like, so when we lived with my grandparents, because it's my mom and she had the 3 kids, but we lived with my grandpa, my grandma, and my 2 aunts. And then my grandparents had 6 kids. And then at the time, my aunt that had the most kids was 4 kids, but everybody was married and had kids. And so like, Colleen and I were just talking about like when we, her in-laws remind me of my family. And so all the cousins would be like on the floor, sleepovers, like literally, I'm not even exaggerating. And that put the big family in me too, because we always had people over, we always had family around, aunts, cousins, like, and so I wanted to have a big family too. Yeah.
And even seeing them and like how they interact with each other, compared to like my family, I was like, man, I want this for my family.
Yeah.
Like, I want this, you know, which is kind of weird to even think that thought at that time, because probably like a couple years prior, I remember being like, I don't want kids.
Yeah.
Like, I don't, like, no, I don't. I think just being raised in my household, I was like, why would I want this for, you know, because I think at the time it was like normal.
Yeah.
Like, everyone goes through this, you know?
Yeah.
Why would I want that for my kid? Like, for my, you know? And so I just remember not wanting kids and then seeing my husband's family. And it wasn't like, we were like, oh yeah, we should have a kid.
Yeah.
But it was just, you know, seeing it was like, that's what I want, you know? But I mean, after we had the first 2, I was kind of like, I don't know.
We had them so close too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that was one thing I was going to mention too with our second, which, it's so sad looking back, but you got to understand, like, I was a teenager. I would have been 18 by the time my second was born, fresh out of high school, which I had a lot of things going for me, because my senior year in high school, I actually worked with a credit union.
Okay.
And so like I would, my senior year, I would go to school for like in the morning, I think.
Yeah.
And then I would go work. And then even like on Tuesdays, which was like our even days, I think, I like had to be there like one day or like one class. And then I got to go, you know, and so I think that's what helped a lot with the kid, with having my firstborn.
And you guys weren't married at this point?
No, we were not married. So right out of high school, I had the 2 and I was working, and we were still living at his mom's. And then I was able to get us an apartment. And I remember too at the time, like my mom helped us get 2 vehicles. Like, so we had 2 vehicles. Like, I don't know, just from the outside looking in, you could probably look at me and be like, man, she has it together. Yeah. You know, like she has the apartment, she has the vehicles, like she has a good job, you know, but I was still broken inside. Like there was still so much going on inside, like just having toxic relationship with my husband at the time, like, because what I thought was normal was when we have a disagreement, I lay my hands on you because you don't agree with me. Why wouldn't you agree with me? Right. And so that was very much what I thought was normal in our relationship. And obviously it wasn't, but it was kind of like all I knew. Like that's how we settled our disagreements. And so I just remember like that was very much a scenario in our lives then. But after that, so I was gonna say that was after high school. Oh yeah, so I'm like right around the point where like his cousin actually invited us out to. Okay. But so with the whole like just us like being toxic with each other, like not being kind with our words, just like attacking each other with our words, physically attacking each other, like, just so much violence, anger coming out when we would have disagreements that we were both very much like suicidal, and to the point of like, if you leave, like I will, know, and just things like that. Just I just mentioned that because that's kind of how we got brought to church. Was not to share too much of his testimony, but like he prayed because he was like really gonna end his life, and he prayed and was like, God, if you're real, then please, like, I need help and I don't know what else to do. I need something. And the next day, his cousin called him and invited him out to a concert.
I think he has shared that one time at like when he did a concert or something like that. Yeah.
And I remember too, like, I very much was like just overwhelmed with my life, so like, not that I contemplated like suicide, like I was like, I'm really gonna do it, but there was definitely those thoughts of like, what's the point, Just real quick, I want to go back because I wanted to say something about my second pregnancy. That's what I was gonna say. Was, just the way, like, where my life was at. I was a teenager, about like I already had one kid in my junior year, and then finding out I was pregnant again shortly after that. I remember actually going to my mom where she was working at the time, and I remember crying to her like, I'm pregnant again. Like, I felt so like, I don't know, like I think a lot of times, which it's not the only one that I felt that way, like just very recently with our twin. Like, we had 3 and then we're pregnant with our twins, like very much like, what is gonna happen? Just because I wanted to touch about like teenagers, like the whole high school thing. I feel like that kind of what was brought, like that's what brought it to my mind. Was I remember going to my mom and I almost like, I don't know if I would have done it if it wasn't for my mom, but I just remember honestly contemplating like abortion, like I already have one. I'm still in high school. How am I supposed to finish high school with another one? And I remember my mom being like, no, you can't do that. Like, so she very much was like against that, which thank God, because I love my,
And you're like, if I look at him, like I can't imagine life like, without, that,
I don't know, that's just, I feel for like the moms who feel like they have no choice, and they do, they do go through abortion because they just feel like everything's against them.
So just to like pause on this. So what if there's a teen mom out there facing that, whether it's her first one or her second one or whatever, and she doesn't have the support, and like a mom saying, no, it's going to be okay, what would you say to her?
I would honestly say to her that like it all works out. Like it really does. Like you could look at the situation and you can definitely like go heavy on like the thoughts of like it's not gonna work. How am I supposed to survive? Like I can't even take care of myself because I was a teenager, and but it just always works out, and I don't know how. I just know it does, because I remember like even my husband. Like, he was never scared. Like, even when we found out we were pregnant with our first, he was never scared. He was always like, he just always knew, like, if I just love this baby, like, everything's going to be fine. And so I definitely encourage him, like, to just love that baby and just, do whatever it takes to, keep the baby. Because it is sad. It's really sad to, for a woman to experience that, and then on the other side, like the baby, So
and knowing women that have had abortions, it is something that they live with forever.
Yes.
And I have somebody that's like close to me, not relationally, but like familiar, like in the family, and it still affects her to this day. And that was when she was in high school. And it is so easy to just, I'm going to take this pill or I'm going to do this. And not really thinking of, like, later on in life.
Exactly.
You might, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Yeah. So definitely encouraging the young mom or teenager to fight through it almost. Because
Right.
it can be a fight, you know? Fighting like the thoughts of like it'll just be easier, you know? But I do believe that they will live with that for the rest of their lives, and so.
Right.
But
and I know, like, on the flip side, one of our kids had a teenage mom, and I've been able to form somewhat of a relationship with her. And while she misses her child every day, she's so grateful because she knows, like, I can't even take care of myself. I can't, like, she loves her child so much that she just knows, like, she knows she did the right thing even though it hurts her every day, you know? And
like to give her up for adoption, right?
yes.
And
And her situation was a little bit different because she knew right away that I can't care for this baby and I want the best for this baby.
Yes.
And I want to give this baby up for adoption. But the system and family were telling her you were too young to make that decision. And so she had to raise this child for a while that she knew she couldn't. She was coming out of a situation that she needed healing from, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, if, like, speaking to that teenage mom,
Yes.
there are people that will adopt your baby too.
Yes.
And your child, and especially if you just put it up for adoption as a baby, there's like a lot more people that want babies versus older kids.
Yeah.
And so but yeah, it will work out one way or another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so going back to like us getting invited to the concert, which is so funny because when I was thinking about it, I remember actually not wanting to go to the concert.
Yeah.
Like, so, I mean, obviously what my husband prayed and what he went through was the big motivator, because I remember him like wanting to go to this concert in the park that his cousin invited him to, and I kind of was like, I don't really want to. Like, I just remember being busy. I just didn't really see the point of it in a sense. But because of my husband's testimony in that area, he was very much like, no, I'm going.
Yeah.
You know? If you want to go, you could go too, but I'm going.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to, that's fine. You know, and so I was like, okay, like he seems like he really wants to, I'll go with him.
Yeah.
You know, and our relationship too at this point was already somewhat rocky. And so I don't know, it just kind of kind of made me want to go since he was going.
Right.
And so but going there, I don't remember a whole lot about it. Like, I don't remember, you know, the altar call. I don't remember the rapping, because I believe his cousin had mentioned to him that he was gonna be performing at the concert. And so I don't know. I think for sure the testimony of, you know, my husband crying out and then him getting a call to be invited to this concert, I think that was like a huge motivator. But I also wondered too if like seeing his cousin actually perform, I wonder if that was part of it too. You know, like, I want to see my cousin up there. But I don't remember a whole lot, but I do remember like one specific testimony, which is so similar to like my husband, was a man from church. He was testifying about how he had pretty much prayed the same thing. Like, he was getting ready to commit suicide, and then he walked into a place and a man recognized him who was like a preacher of the gospel. And I just remember like being like, wow, that was like a powerful testimony to me, not knowing that's literally happening before my husband. But
because you weren't aware that your husband was like that low, and that he cried out, so you were not aware.
I did not know that.
Okay.
It wasn't until like later on, like probably like several months after that, that I found out that was like why we went to the concert. But yeah, and so I remember like hearing that testimony, like, wow, that's powerful. And at the altar call, like, I remember them saying specifically, you feel God tugging on your heart, to come up. And I definitely did. I definitely did feel God like, okay, this is like your chance. Like, which I know I was hurting inside. Like, because I remember shortly before this, like I had mentioned, I worked a lot. And it was kind of hard for my husband to keep jobs at this point. But I had kept my same job for over like 2 years or a year or so.
Right.
And I remember like, always working, and he would stay home with the kids a lot of the time. But I remember like one of my checks I got, we paid all the bills. We barely had anything left from that, which thank God that we were able to pay all our bills. But not having anything left was kind of like, this sucks, Why do I even work?
Right.
And I remember like my husband wanting to buy drugs, and I was just like, okay, here, buy, get whatever you want. But I remember after that thinking like, man, this is my life. Like, this is all it is. And kind of like feeling like, man, I'm just like my parents in a sense. Like, like I feel like at some point it's like, oh, now I have a family, but then it's like at this point, it's like, I'm still just like them. Like, I'm still here,
So were you still using too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this was kind of actually the point where I had mentioned like later on where I felt like I was kind of just, I didn't really want to anymore. This is that point where I remember being like, I wanted him to be happy, and so I gave him the money. But at the same time, I didn't feel like the need to smoke anymore. But I also had a decent job, and then we had the 2 kids, and so it just wasn't like a big motivator. Like, I just didn't really care. But for him, it was almost like he just needed it to function, kind of, And so I do, and I think that's part of the reason why I felt that way. Like, this is all my life is amounting to. Like, I just spent the last bit of my money on drugs, and I don't even really care for them. Like, it's not something I need to do. For him, it definitely felt like he needed it. And so, but so back to like the altar call, like, I know that I was hurting. I know that I was broken inside, just questioning my life in general. But still, almost like at the altar call, like I know that God was tugging on my heart to go up there and pray. But at the same time, like, I don't know if I would have done it by myself, because like he went up, and he prayed because of what led him to that point. But for me, it wasn't like I was stubborn. It wasn't like I was like, no, I'm not gonna go up there. But at the same time, I was like, do I? Like, what is this gonna do? It was just very unknown. Like, it just wasn't. I wasn't familiar with church. I wasn't familiar with God, and so at the same time, I want to go up there and pray, but also like, why? You're fine. Kind of like a voice.
I got a job. I have a family.
I'm good. We're just going through hard times or whatever the case is. But I did. I ended up going up there to pray, as well as my husband, and it's so funny. The next day was Father's Day, because that was Saturday. The next day was Father's Day, and you would think like Sunday church, we'd be in the church that was there putting on the concert and the event, but we went to his friend's church. His friend invited him to a different church, and my husband was like, I just want to go check it out. And so we did. Like, we went to a different church during the morning, and then I don't know how, but we knew that there was going to be church at night at the one that put on the event. And so we went to the one at night, and that was the first time we were ever there. And then they were actually going into like a revival, which is like multiple services every single night, or like throughout the week. So every single night in the week. And we just started going, like, from that Sunday night, we went Monday night all the way to Friday, I believe. Like, I don't think we missed one. And from there, like, I just feel like we never really looked back.
I don't think, like, once you guys came, like, that was, like, that was
I don't remember
you guys not being here.
That's pretty much it. Like, that was, like, I think because of the powerful, like, testimony that my husband has, I feel like that's what really, like, brought us there. Like, I think because he made his mind up. Like, he was like, I'm broken and I'm getting ready to, like, end it all.
Right.
If you don't help me, God. And God sent his help.
Right.
And so I feel like that's what helped my husband walk in. And I just wanted to be where he was.
Right.
And so I was there, which he can share, like, just because we were in church, like, we were, like, a lot changed instantly in our lives. Like, we never smoked again. We never drank alcohol again. So it was very powerful, like, surrendering to God and giving it all to him, you know. But there's a lot of internal trauma that I feel like we still have to deal with that isn't always solved the first time we prayed.
Exactly.
You know, and so we went through a lot of that, like, within our relationship. But after we started going to church, we got married. Yeah. In 1 month. After
it was only 1 month.
Yeah. So this was around May.
Okay.
The exact day of the concert was May 13th, 2017. Yeah. And then we got married June 25th of 2017. Wow. So just a little over a month, we got married.
And I still remember your, like, beautiful purple dress.
I still have it.
I love that color. I was like, oh, that's so pretty. Right.
I remember actually before we got invited out to this concert, I had actually lost my credit union job. Yeah, and I feel like that was kind of like God, like, putting things into place. Because after that, I had found a job really quick, but I was doing, like, overnight audit at a hotel. Yeah. And so it just wasn't sustainable. Right. And I was like, I would get tired easily. Yeah. But I was working multiple jobs at the time just to try to keep up with our bills. And, but I feel like all of that contributes to, like, bringing you to a point where you're like, you know that there's no other way. You know? I feel like we all come to that point. You know, and some of us don't, think, I don't know what it is. I don't know if some people just think, like, oh, I could keep going. I could just keep chugging along, you know? I don't know, but I feel like the majority of us come to a point where we're at the end of ourselves.
Right. And even after salvation, I think we can come to that point multiple times. Yes. Because, like you said, not all the trauma and the things that we went through get, like, just resolved in salvation. Yeah. And so I think for me, there's been times when, okay, this happens, and then, okay, now let's really deal with this head on. Yeah. And then, oh gosh, God, I really need to just get delivered from this. Yeah. And so I think we come to that point multiple times. And I don't know, that's just awesome. I didn't realize you guys were only coming a month. Yeah. That's amazing. So now, okay, so you guys were married. Yeah. And then how soon after you guys got married did you have your third?
It took 2 years.
2 years, yeah. And then after that, were your twins?
3.
Okay, yeah. And so your oldest is 10 or 11?
He's 9.
9, okay.
9. Oh, we have 9, 8, 5, and then the 2 3-year-olds.
Right. And they're so cute. And your middle one is such a middle child. Yeah, he is. I mean, literally, you almost have, like, what do they call them? Indian twins?
Oh, yeah,
right?
Irish
twins. Yeah. And then twins. It's amazing, and then to see how far you guys have come, because now you guys are going to be sent out to be pastors. Like, your pastor's wife, he's going to be a pastor, and your kids are just going to, like, grow up in a whole different, like, environment and lifestyle that you guys grew up in. Yes. And I think that's just so, like, the grace of God.
Yes. Yeah, like, breaking the generational trauma and curses, like, here with us. Which some things I could still struggle with. Like I was saying, like, some things I do, I could see my mom doing them. Yeah. And it's not, like, I love my mom, but I'm sure she saw her mom do those things. Yeah. How it is raising kids, like you said in the beginning, it's hard when you actually are parenting them. Right. And I can lose my temper with them, or, just please just stop, just sit down, you
Yeah,
know, and
yeah.
things like that, where I could see my mom or even my grandma and the way that they reacted. And with me, I know that I have done that to my kids, but almost like even being aware, and like the sermon last night, Pastor was saying, like, to bring it to the altar, bring it to God every single day. That area, which to me, that's one of my areas of darkness, is that, like, the generational anger and like wrath, I guess, in a sense, with, you know, not having patience with kids, but to bring it to God every single day and surrendering it, whether you feel like, say it's been 5 days and you haven't done it, still bring it to God. Yeah. Because He can still, you know, it can still be there. He can still help you.
So
in that area.
I think all of us deal with anger in some form or another, but as a mom, I think we feel worse because it's our nature to nurture.
Yeah.
Right? And then our emotions, like, I think it just hurts us when we get angry. Like, I hurt after, like, oh my gosh, right? It's okay to be mad, but to get angry.
Yes.
Yeah, and so,
I always think about that with my kids.
But
oh my God, I don't want to ruin my kids, even though, like, I mean, I know we all can be hard on ourselves, but things like that, you know, I'm like, I could already see it in them, like.
So here's the thing, though, okay? Like, maybe this will set you free. You are gonna put stuff in your kids. Yeah. You are gonna mess up. You and your husband you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, you know? And then when they're parents, you know, you're gonna just like, oh, I did that, right? But think about how much better of a life that your kids are living now. Yes. And then how many curses already are broken. Yeah, exactly. And so, like, I see Colleen and her husband, right? Like, his parents and us, like, we're, like, I guess, first generation saved, right? Right. So
they're second. Both of them are second.
Right. And so, like, his parents and Colleen's parents, and we fought some fights, right? Yes. And broke some things. Yeah. And then now they're breaking things. And then their, you know, kids hopefully going to have a whole lot less to break, you know? And then they just keep it going. Yeah. And that's awesome. Yeah. Like, to see her being a better mom than I feel like I was. Yeah. I'm just like, that's good, right? Good. Because how sad if you saw your daughter, like, being almost, you know, we all have like ugliness that we feel like, I don't want nobody to know I'm like this, right? But to see her, like, some things I'll be like, she did that really good, like, yay, like that's something that I would have struggled with. Or you know your kid and what they struggle with. Yeah. And you're like, ooh, she overcame that one. That was, like, so, you know, you just feel so proud. And so you are going to make mistakes. Yeah. And there are going to be things that your kid's going to have to deal with. The grace of God. Right? Yeah. And, like, it's not, the thing that has really helped me is that my momming, whatever you want to call it, is not all on me. Yeah. And so where I fail, that's where God steps in. Yeah, definitely. And I remember praying one time, a pastor preached a sermon about, like, how we, you know, family curses and things like that. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. Like, yeah, I probably, you know, have my kids are probably struggling with this or that, you know. And I have more of this, like, sense of guilt and responsibility with my oldest two, not the others, because most of them came older. And a lot of what they deal with is from before us. Their own generation. Right. And so, but I just remember praying, like, God, I pray that my mistakes lead my kids to you. Yes. And that they find God even despite of my failures. Yeah. You know? And your kids are watching you guys, especially your two older ones. Yeah. You know, your little ones, they're like, Mom and Dad have always been in church, you know? Yeah. But your older ones, they can tell the younger ones, no. Like, this is not the full story. Yeah. You know? And they are watching you guys come from, you know, being high school parents didn't live for God,
Yeah.
now you're going to go be a pastor and pastor's wife.
That's crazy.
And so to me, that's just awesome. And so you guys are giving them a very solid foundation. And to me, like, you're giving them more than you're not giving them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And so the good of God and the good that God's done in your life outweighs our, like, slip ups, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And your kids are watching you go through the struggles, but then seeing how God has brought you out of it.
Yeah, for sure.
So we always end with the same question. What is one thing that you learned from your mom?
Yes. When you said that question, I had to think about it just because I do feel like I have a lot of qualities from my mom. But one thing that I really do feel like I learned from her firsthand by watching was just being able to watch her, like when we would go to a friend's house, like she was always cleaning up. And so that's me, like that's where I got it from. But like and just almost like, which my mom's not saved, and she knows about God and things like that, and but she'd always be like a blessing to people, like when she was over at other people's houses, you know, just cleaning up after them.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
But that's you. That's
I think that, and that's what really, I feel like that's where my mind went when I was thinking about that question. Just because it is like, that is who I am. And so that's one thing that I will cherish, because I really do like that about myself, you know?
Yeah. You definitely have a servant's heart.
Yes.
And that is one thing that when you guys go, that I'm really like praying that, because you've done so much for our church and you guys have filled in so many roles. And it's like, oh wow. Now somebody's like, Isabel does so many things, you know, and there's so much that we don't even know that you do, you know? And so a lot of times you don't know how much somebody has done until they leave, and you're just like, wow. And so you definitely have a big servant's heart, and it's been a blessing to watch. I'm very glad that you were able to take time and come. And I like, when you were announced, I told my husband, I was like, oh, I have to hurry and get her over and like do her interview, because there's so many things I wanted to talk to you. You know what, like your testimony, I just wanted to really share that with other people, you know, and so thank you for taking the time.
Yeah, I've always wanted to, on a platform that could potentially reach, you know, a lot of people. It's just, our testimonies are powerful. Yeah. And when you really like lay some of the like real like intricate details of them, you're like, man, that is powerful. And I feel like people can listen to them and know that God's real.
And it's crazy because even though you and I had different paths, there's so many similarities. I'm sure your testimony is going to touch you.
Even if that could even help one person, it'd be worth it. For sure.
But thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
It's fun.